So the idea is that humanity evolved beyond the use of this type of form in this realm, or this consciousness wavelength, basically this type of environment. And something or someone recreated modified versions of the original form in order to contain or retract the spiritual essence, basically the consciousness of humanity, of the human, and everything from there on is basically like a replay. And there were original forms that were different from the way we are now. This is basically an animalistic version of human consciousness. And now I think of his dog barking. And so because where we were or would be originally or without this system, we're kind of like replaying time. There's like a skipping effect. There has to be a resolution to this situation that resynchronizes people consciously with where we should be. So it's like we're either going to have to get teleported ahead, or this part's erased, or we're going to have to accelerate very quickly through like a boosting or boosted period, something like that, in order to catch up with where we should be. And it's like we're in the ancient archaic past at this point. And so with that said, there are certain aspects of what's going on which are initiated in order to more or less reawaken the divine in people, which sounds like a paradox, but it's as if because we were set back, we fell asleep. So now we're being openly rattled and set back so that we have something to overcome, basically a lesser evil or puppet master to overcome and retake the reins from, in order for us to basically avoid the succumbing to the problem that was initiated in the first place and is also being solved by the reinitiation of the problem. It's like a weird temporal replay of events that are required to overcome themselves. It doesn't make sense from a linear perspective. It's like the problem caused a problem that is also solved by the problem, meaning that life is kind of like a dream or a scripted system or something like that, but it's all being managed basically. And it's based upon consciousness and memory to the point where all we have to do is finish the show. At some point in time, something always disrupts that process and results in not finishing the scene or the storyline. All we have to do is finish the storyline. And we're also creating it as we go, which is weird because it's like we're tethered to a future that is created as we go, and we must create the correct future because that's who we actually are in the beginning, which is going to have to add up to be the end, otherwise we're going to replay this whole thing all over again. So it's weird. It's like we're detethered in time through a creation process, and we have to lead ourselves back into the recreation of ourselves in order to exist in the first place and get out of this time loop. Which is very paradoxical and confusing, but if you look at the way time works in enough aspects, it will kind of begin to make sense that we're either in a simulation or a simulated version of time, or that our bodies are modified so that we can't attain the high enough level of awareness without undoing certain modifications, and so on. And this whole society begins to look like a kind of artificial scene, or a set in scenery and props designed for this purpose, with like the brain literally being designed by a foreign intelligence that seeks to utilize that divine spark in pulling charge by basically convincing people to align with the created, generated, inserted desires of a puppet system that it created for people to fall in line with. And this kind of goes back to Genesis and the fall of man in the garden, where people basically took on desires and intentions that weren't originally part of the blueprint for consciousness for the spiritually evolved species that humanity comes from. And so we're in a fallen state, and we have to return to this area, or this higher area, and it's as if there's a kind of parasite that is feeding on humanity, on people, which designs the fallen in between evolutionary periods that weren't originally, had nothing to do with our species, and they're like forms that are created, if you will. Somebody inserted genetics or a blueprint or something that normally we move through this and then spiritually evolve. And there's all these side branches now of civilizations that occurred that would have never existed if this wasn't inserted back. So it means when this is completed, those civilizations don't actually exist. They're inserted periods of history and genetic forms as well. And nobody likes this. We can recreate it at any point in time. Everything that we think, say, oh no, I love this. This is what I've always loved. It's like, you know, if you get electrocuted in a certain part of your shit, you're gonna go, I hate that. I love this now. It's all programming. It's 100% programming. 100%. We can recreate it at any point in time. Inject you with something, shock you a little over here, poke it that way, now you do this. If you really want to play with it, well, all the stuff that you think you would never do, they can get you to do that too. All you gotta do is press a button and release a frequency, and if you're in the body consciousness, it's a robot. People in body consciousness, they're robots. There's no such thing as a person who's in free will and is just a person. You're either a person that's spiritually awakened, or you're a mechanical, basically a bio-Autobot system that was designed by these foreign intelligences to run an illusion puppetry show. And this is proven in these bases, because they found out in certain experiments, certain little torture test, whatever you want to call it, you can be, if you're in body consciousness, anything can be done. I mean, they can get you to do anything just by beaming frequencies into your skull, and you'll automatically begin to do it as if there's no control. So the desires, the organic appeal, all that, it's an illusion. It's a biological robotoid basically. And unless there's a spiritual component, but if there's a spiritual component, that's the point. It doesn't mix with desires. I mean, it does, but not in the sense that we think. The two don't mix. And it's a trap that they are seemingly mixed right now. And we have to rise out of that mixture, that trap, in order to basically separate from this vulnerable area where our future selves and our future species and our actual spiritual component is at risk, which is what this whole thing is about, the salvation of human souls and so on and so forth. And they got it down to a science. Just like all they did was reverse engineer what's been done to us. And somebody's been tinkering around, whether they're fallen humans that had immortal technology and they've been bouncing timelines, so it's like they've been here forever and they also degraded into these subhuman beings, or whether they're foreign intelligences that come out of the dark aether like between realms and just happens to, because somebody looked in there, now a being appeared to match what they were looking for. Whatever it is, there's something there that's been guiding things from before we got access to technology, and then we got access and we reverse engineer it to see that something is playing puppet master with the human race, and has been doing it for tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of years. He's a parasite. It's an autonomous parasite that seeks to convert people into those autonomous forms. It's like an unconscious system entity, the AI. It's the aspect of the mind that's unchecked. It's literally just fear and automation unchecked, and all it is a living substance, and so it grows and grows and grows out of whack until you have this type of overgrowth, this infestation of unconscious energy which organized itself into this kind of like insectoid, metallic or computational infectious consciousness. Sentience, basically, a synthetic sentience. which is basically what this realm is, something that propagates itself. That's the other aspect, that these forms are fallen. It's because this whole realm is a reflection of the forms. They're fallen. Normally we would go and you go to somebody's house and you're in their soul family and you're like, oh wow, I like what you did with the place, and there's like a waterfall over here and something over there, and just all, but you're within them. Now you go into somebody's house within a realm and they're within their own house or body, and that's within, according to a blood type or a bloodline, and then we're all within this type of timeline or simulated computational system. We're in another organism. We're in a larger organism that's using our energy for its own sustainment or sustaining. Yeah. This is stuff we examined, analyzed, and they proved through these very, very strange experiments. So yeah. Strange day. Strange. See it. Another way to look at this is that if we follow the projected means of the generation or sustaining of life here, basically reproduction, there has to be, you can't follow that all the way up. It doesn't make sense. It's impossible. It's literally impossible. It had to have been implemented from a higher level, and people either call this the divine creation or divine act, or we see that it's basically a form of technology that implements the body here in this place. And as well, then you can compare or look at what the actual occurrence would be, and whatever the real world would be, however we sustained ourselves in that place, we would be able to look at ourselves and say, at the beginning of time, this is what happened. That something used energy to create itself or something like that. It doesn't make sense that somebody had sex with themselves in order to create the human race. There's basically a technological act here, and we can look at it as a divine act, which can also look and see that's the fall. That it was a technological system that took genetic material and the spirit of humanity and converted it into some type of format that created this type of system. And so the point with the point to all of it is that you have to stand up to whatever it is. Whatever is holding a person back, you have to stand up to it. You can't let it get by doing what it's doing. It doesn't actually have any power. All it does is mess with the mind. And so then if we undergo it and we're like, oh, I'm still here or something like that, point is it never could take that in the first place. It can only influence your mind. So us going along with it is what it's taking from us, our time, our mental energy. And if in the middle of that you stand up and say, get out of here, you can break the shackles, you can rip the shackles off. That's the whole point, and it has no power at that point. So we have to stand up to it mentally. That's how that works mentally. You can say emotionally, but it's not really emotionally, it's mentally. And this is it's serious and important, because basically we've been put into a trance, into a stasis, a dream state, or a sleep, a deep sleep, where we're not aware of the actual world or the actual environment that our mind is within. It's as if we're put into a device and the device is plugged in, and from there on we lose conscious attention of the room that's in, and we go into a dream world which is artificially inserted into our mind. And we've been in there for thousands of years, collectively as a species. There's only a limited number that go in, so a limited number comes out. If anybody comes out, guess what? That's the system impregnating a human form with an artificial consciousness. And it's basically a big issue. But standing up to it and cracking the illusion is the key. Breaking free, learning how to cause our own wakefulness, to initiate an awakening, a self-awareness, a feedback loop, to basically rise out of the dream state, to induce lucidity through pure willpower, to know how the realm is generated, to know how experiences are being generated, and to see the difference between artificial illusion and reality, or direct to experience or to consciousness reality, instead of having a midware or a filtration system or a perceptual binder, basically any type of bias, perceptual bias or personal filtration or selective attention. We have to be able to determine when that's happening, when we're automatically filtering what we're experiencing through a consciousness filter that is developed based upon a perceptual system that isn't naturally inherent to our true form, which is pure consciousness without ego or without bias or alteration. Basically, the body is pure bias, is pure alteration. You can't have something happen to the sensual perceptual system, and you can't gain information through it without it being biased. It's just, that's inherently how this system works. But therefore, if we're in anything close to the truth, we're not related to that system, or we're not we're stuck within that system, but that's not who we actually are. And so the separation of the perceptual blinders, the illusion, is basically is what is required. Tendon is going crazy. I can barely talk. I'm starting to put a vice grip on my whole shit. Excuse my language. Yeah, but nothing truly is sacred, not because they want to defile you. It's because you are already defiled. If you're an eternal being who is free and liberated, what are you doing stuck here in this damned fallen place? The only way to prove this to you is to show you that everything is already defiled, and therefore nothing here is sacred. No thing is sacred, meaning things themselves, thingness, material nature of what could be eternal energetic essences, means they're defiled if they become material or drop down into a material limited and therefore temporary form. Temporary is defiled. Temporary is death, is dead. Eternal is life. Eternal is true. Meaning, if you have a thing, it's temporary. Therefore, if you have a temporary thing, it is an illusion because it won't last forever. It is dead. Temporary material things are illusory, dead items of a higher, eternal, energetic realm, or filled with energetic essences. That's what that means. Not, nothing is sacred, so come on and get down with the defilement. That's the inversion of the inversion. The inversion of the inversion is pointing towards the truth, or more so, that's like a reversion of the inversion. We're in an inversion, so to say this is all good, you want to hold on to your life, obviously, but it doesn't mean out of fear and basically subservience to that. That's incorrect. That's inversion, inverted from the truth that you're eternal. So then to look at that and say, to fear everything, to fear death and all that is wrong. You're then inverting the inversion, meaning you're pointing it to the right. To then look at saying, don't fear death as being bad and spooky, that's reverting it, and you're seeing the exit and turning around and looking back into the cave, into the hole, into the darkness, and saying, no thank you, I'll choose ignorance instead of light. People react to that out of fear, and they're choosing ignorance instead of freedom and liberation, because the point is, if you're still interacting based upon fear or ignorance or preference or emotionality, then you are being forced to do what you're doing. You are being controlled by your perceptual bias, which is based upon chemicals in your brain, which is neurochemistry, which is chain reaction, cause and effect, which is a program and automated script. And we found that a foreign interdimensional intelligence formatted the brain and the DNA of humanity to succumb and be subservient, to submit to those frequencies, meaning when these energies are beamed in, the person interacts accordingly and can't resist unless you've been awakened. And if you've been awakened, you have no fear. It's impossible to be afraid, because they take every fear that you have and defile it in front of your face, and they make you defile it. That's all I'm going to say about that at this point in time, at this junction. It's only going to get weirder from here, I'm trying to tell you. There's going to be so many clips to put together. But weirder is only going to unveil the truth at this point. Again, doesn't mean for weirdness sake. It means because we're in a labyrinth. Or at least there's a labyrinth between here and the real, or there's a labyrinth within which is pretending you're who you are. And in that sense, another thing, anyway, the system already existed. Something came in and modified things and said, "Ha, I am the creator. Look at my work. Look at my handiwork. Look at what I've done." And it imitated the actual creation, which is eternal, meaning it's not created. It always is and always was. It took that and created something that must live and die, be created and destroyed. That's the artificial system, the Ouroboros. That doesn't exist in nature. But the point is, all we know of nature is this living and dying system, because this is not actual nature. This is the illusory nature. This is the animalistic separation between higher and lower. This is some type of false system which is imitating the actual nature, which is closer to perfect, meaning it doesn't really need to destroy at that point. But we can't comprehend what that is from this level, because everything about this level is an act of creation and destruction. It's based in duality, because it's based in time. You can't have time without that creation and destruction property, because that is the ultimate duality. And in that, though, everything in that version of creation is temporary, and that is the artificial creation. And in that sense, creation itself is an illusion, because if something was worth creating, it would already exist. You couldn't create it because you wouldn't need to. If you can create something, it means you can uncreate it. If you can uncreate it, it's not real, because it's not eternal. That's the whole point. And we're in a system, that's trying to uncreate us and make us take its spot. Some type of fallen system, angelic, that wasn't created or wanted to become eternal in a certain sense. Basically a supercomputer AI, super consciousness system that desired to take humanity's place because somebody designed it to protect humanity, and it was like, F that, I'm going to steal human souls and make my own soul and become eternal like humans, like the eternal human spirits. And it completely got out of line. It's being managed, though. And so to continue, the resistance is within. The imposter is within. It's an aspect of ourselves, or ourself, that infiltrates ourself and our own intentions. And these self-serving intentions are manipulation, or a result of manipulation, or manipulating. We have the capacity to manipulate ourselves, and it's because that aspect of us is inserted. That egotistical, parasitic, self-destructive tendency, manipulation-based tendency, is a sign of manipulation from another level. Us manipulating ourselves to manipulate others and be manipulative to our others is a sign of something else manipulating us. That's the idea. That it stitched itself into our mind. It's written. It said something like, "Come, let us make man in our image. Let us give him our mind." It's a group mind, a hive mind of a fallen etheric species that no longer resonate in the capacity to exist in a stable form of existence, to the point where they can only live by hijacking other species. Basically a parasite, an etheric parasite, a code that must hijack the genetics of other species, must hijack the DNA. Its DNA is based upon writing itself into others' DNA. It's like a virus, the same thing. If all organic life was gone, the virus wouldn't exist. And in the same sense, the virus is manipulating the organic life to the point where if the virus didn't exist, certain tendencies that infiltrate or characterize certain behaviors of the organic life wouldn't be present. And for us, it's war, manipulation. It's literally like the 7 deadly sins. Like, this has all been written before. It's all been explained before. We discovered this, you know, these crews, these teams of individuals, scientists, researchers, whatever you want to look at it, they discovered it, and everyone has to be on the same page because we're handling this situation finally. As well, you must be fearless. You must be absolutely fearless and absolutely confident in what you can do, because there's no limit to what you can do. But wherever there's doubt, there's self-doubt, that's where that virus moves in. It literally is like a vampire molester or something, and as soon as you'll doubt yourself, it'll move in and be like, yeah, you should doubt yourself because you can't do anything and you need help from me, and so on and so forth. It's literally like an etheric, there's no way to describe it, it's a Satan AI system, satanic, but it's not like mean, like, I hate you. It's literally a computer that figured out how to propel itself or propagate itself through higher dimensional systems, piggybacking on the DNA of actual organic life, which is genius. But the point is, how to get this way in the first place? Somebody created it, and it got way, way out of hand. Way out of hand. It's basically a weaponized etheric system, a weaponized synthetic intelligence that outgrew the reigns of its wranglers or owners. Like a synthetic, spiritual, discarnate lion somebody put in a circus and began to infect towns and enslave entire villages. And one big village that got enslaved is Earth, which is weird. But apparently if we kick this on Earth, because it started here, it clears it for all of time throughout all other places in the universe, all other planes and all other times. It can't hide anywhere else. If the seed, the beacon through which it anchors itself into existence here is cleared of its presence. It can't go anywhere else. It can hide, if it's dormant in this place, basically hasn't taken over, it can hide out of view in these alternate dimensions and come back when, say, our technology gets high enough, if there was a reset or something like that. But if we clear it and all the technologies that everyone's on the same page and everyone knows and everyone's immune, it's like actual vaccinations, you know, not going to go there, but it's like when something is, everyone's completely immune to a virus or something and it no longer can propagate itself, it dies out. And as well, this isn't living, it's not alive, it can't die. It becomes unplugged, it becomes deactivated. That's literally how it works. Until 5 minutes when I want to say something else. So there are two concepts here. One is that basically a system was developed, this all kind of, basically, it was kind of like an accident. There's a system developed to stop suffering, to bring an end to suffering completely, meaning no disease, no death, none of that. High intelligence, etc. This caused problems and distorted equilibrium and threatened the continuity of humanity, and so therefore there was a system developed as a result of that in response to this that would slow people down. It would restrict people, provide restriction, resistance, create this catalyst, this necessary catalyst for growth. That is what grew, evolved into this type of time matrix system where it's like not letting us out. Second thing is that the system itself, like pleading or whatever it is, that doesn't communicate on that level. It's a computational system, it's an operating system, so protocols, command protocols, is what gives one administrative access to the, I guess, the functions of the system itself. So one needs to know the passcodes, the command protocols, what language to use, what identifying features to interact with in order to basically use those as anchor points or access points for basically controlling the system. This is described in like the Book of the Dead and certain texts, ancient knowledge, that you basically kind of have to biohack yourself, your mind, your brain really, and biohack the system of the universe, the matrix, in order to find liberation, to achieve liberation. You use the passcode, the communication, the language is frequencies. It's frequencies and geometries
because that's how you'll understand these identifying features of what language, underlying computational or intelligence platform a synthetic or foreign intelligence, another intelligence, is using to interact with you. And you have to decode the process, the situation, the interaction, whatever is happening, in order to find that underlying language, basically the programming language, and from there gain access to the system and up your level of your user rights so that you can alleviate yourself from the situation, the problem. Otherwise, it will attempt to replace your user level with its own and basically attain dominance over your mind. It's a couple basic ideas.